We have a very special guest today. And first of all, happy Valentine's Day. And shout out to Darren Walker because I posted a post on like superconductivity and DNA. And he was like, you need to contact Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So I did. So, all right, guys, we have an absolute legend with us. He's someone whose life story reads like a classified document that somehow got leaked into the real world. And it's got science, metaphysics, intelligence operations, paranormal research. Dr. Richard Allen Miller has done it all. And this man was building particle accelerators in high school. And by 16, he was already demonstrating particles moving faster than the speed of light. NASA picked up on two of his high school projects, one of which was used on the Mariner 4 mission to Mars to detect water. And that alone is insane. But we're just getting started. Dr. Miller spent 11 years in Navy Intel working on ESP research, synthetic telepathy, and deep state consciousness studies. He was doing ESP experiments with astronaut Edgar Mitchell on the dark side of the moon, training Navy SEALs in super soldier protocols, and working on projects so ahead of their time that they sound like science fiction. Oh, and that's not wild enough. He was literally the real life inspiration for Fox Mulder in the X-Files. His research dives deep into holographic reality, consciousness, mechanics, and the intersection of quantum physics and metaphysics. His family lineage is just as fascinating. His mother and grandmother were renowned psychic investigators. And get this, his grandfather was the magician who trained Houdini. So if you ever wondered what happens when you mix scientific genius, deep esoteric knowledge, and military black projects into one person, you are about to find out. And he's written a ton of books, including Power Tools for the 21st Century and ESP Induction through Forms of Self-Hypnosis, and continues to drop mind-blowing insights on the nature of reality, survival, and human potential. I highly recommend, please go to his website and get his books. It is just a gold mine. It's just a wealth of information. I highly recommend it. What is your website?
RichardAllenMiller.com. ALAN. RichardAllenMiller.com.
So buckle up, you guys. Open your mind and get ready because this is going to be a ride, especially with how I think. Like I'm kind of all over. So welcome, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Please be my Valentine. Happy Valentine's Day. How are you?
I'm going bald. Unnatural causes. I pulled it out. Okay. Where shall we start? First, engineers go by Rick and physicists go by Rick. Call me Rick.
Okay.
You can call me Al, or you can call me late for dinner, or you can.
Okay, Rick.
You don't remember that song, huh? You don't remember that one? That was.
You can call me Al.
Yeah, Bob Dylan, when he was singing, you can call me Al, or you can call me late for dinner. But here I sit in the Tijuana jail. Ain't got no money to make my bail.
So I'm always interested in like how of amplifying like remote viewing practices or tapping into that. And you were speaking, I've heard you speak of, when you play a certain frequency in one ear and another frequency in another ear, like the hemisync information, I feel is extremely helpful.
You just did that with your sound thing with the right and left brain. I don't know if you knew that or not. You just did, because all of a sudden I only heard it on this side and then it was coming out of that side. That's called the Gateway Project. That was with Robert Monroe when he was still at Berkeley. And basically we discovered that if you go 10 hertz in this ear and 14 hertz in that ear, what happens is it'll drive your brain down to 4 hertz. Mm. And that means you're going into a low delta state. Now, when you're in these states, the laws of physics change. Altered states of consciousness is where you are right now is in what you would call conscious waking state. But just in the little time you and I played with each other before we went online, I watched you do a bunch of little things. And that indicated you were in probably 4, maybe 5 different altered states. And each one of those places, you can do things you can't do in conscious state. And that's where the laws of physics change. And the new field theory I'm writing with 2 Russians. And while my mentor, Dr. Stanley Krippner thinks I'm going to go to Stockholm, we're doing the Stockholm 2-step, right now in academia and .edu. But what that does is open up my bucket list. And my bucket list includes opening for Saturday Night Live. And if you think that weird humor that's happened over the last 6 decades with Saturday Night Live, 5 decades, Jim Belushi lives just down the street and is now growing marijuana. That's what he is. He's here in Oregon. He's growing marijuana, big plants. He's using a cross with indica. But I did Lunar Base Alpha 1 with Boeing in 1968. And you can find that article in High Times called Growing Pot on the Moon. So I've been there, done that. What I discovered was that getting high, is escape and recreation. But if you studied how to use your mind as a tool rather than absolute, and I'll give you an example. On Carrie's show, I said magic with a C is Harry in your pocket. And, sleight of hand. Something's going on here while he's pickpocketing you over here. Sleight of hand. That's magic with a C. Magic with a K. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Aleister Crowley, Golden Dawn, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's sleight of mind, where you use your mind as a tool. What made you God's favored was choice. And whether you chose to be a Muslim or a Jew should not have caused the wars that we've had the last 12,000 years, should they? And what Christ from Nazareth actually preached was not to judge others. The only person you could judge was yourself. And all your saints in history have suggested the importance of meditation, training the mind. And so that's what I started doing. In 1979, I became a satsangi and meditated 2 hours every day. Om Shri Padme Om, doing the usual stuff. Yeah, exactly. And made some discoveries in terms of what the mind is and what it is not. And right now, this is a dream state. And if you're more psychic, blah, blah, than let's say your neighbor next door, that's because you're either on drugs or you're slightly different in that you don't hang out with normal people. You hang out with people like me. Okay, now, once you realize that altered states are the possibility of doing things in those states like you can't do. Let me give you an example. One of the altered states I gave to the Navy SEAL program is a one called breath control, where you change your breathing to the point where you start to hallucinate, where everything's starting to move in slow motion. Okay, you're familiar with that, are you?
Yeah. Well, I've noticed when a lot of my profound insights was when my breathing went extremely shallow, like really shallow breathing.
Yeah. The way I do it is that I will, instead of like an old fart at the YMCA, instead of walking down through the water trying to I run through the water. And I'm doing it in slow motion because I can't move fast. And my breathing starts to slow down. And then I can have the precision of Tai Chi when in fact I'm doing Hangao. That was the protocols I gave Navy SEALs. Now, just going into that state allowed me to experience in slow motion, so I have the precision. Now, I studied with Bruce Lee, Skip Ellsworth, and Fred Williams as we were little kids under John Leong out of Seattle and Chinatown. And I started in 3rd grade. And so, of course, the Tacoma Mafia. Wow, we got plans for that boy. Yeah, and I'm actually a nerd. I've never been in a fight outside of a ring, and I've been like an old man out in the woods when a couple of long-haired rastas, think they're going to take this old man. And what I do is I get my knife, whatever, and I go into a format. They leave me alone because they know maybe this guy might be dangerous or not. He's not dangerous. He's just old. Well, what I'm trying to make as a principle is that when you do drugs, they're toxins. However, they have a chemistry that's very similar to, but not your neurotransmitter. And when you take a drug, the body immune system goes, oh, and immediately releases the same drug, only slightly different. And that drug is what gets you high. And the one I studied with ketamine, telepathine, which later became dimethyltryptamine, and BZ gas when I was in anesthesiology. Yeah. Oh, okay. So dimethyltryptamine, when you get it out of crabgrass, you're smoking a glass pipe. Whoa, man. But your immune system goes into red alert, and what you release is N, N hyphen dimethyltryptamine, which is different than Steve Blake's crabgrass dimethyltryptamine, which is 5-alpha.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5-alpha is gone, and your N, N hyphen, now your third eye's open. And you can get, and go into a, I'm going backwards, everything's speaking backwards, that kind of thing. But you can do things with your third eye that you can't do when you're in a conscious state. And once you learn how to use those tools, like breath control, imagine if I only gave 8 altered states to the SEAL program, what man could become if I had control of 400 altered states of consciousness? Exactly. Now, that takes a lot of training, and how you would change your belief system, like you would a pair of clothing, to fit what you're trying to get done, is what you call the Gateway Project. Right ear and left ear, different band, again, driving you, forcing you down into certain altered state. And if you know how to do that with your mind's eye, rather than sound or visual, exactly.
It's like pure bliss, right? And that's why it's like better than anything. That's why I want more people to unlock that.
Without having to do a damn thing, but just visualize it in your mind's eye. And that's what I discovered in 1979.
Wow.
Reiki, that's full of Croc Dundee, but basically altered states are tools in a toolbox. And what made you God's favored was choice. Well, you choose this religion over that religion. But if you choose that religion, that doesn't mean that's wrong for those people, because that's what made you God's favored, choice. And nothing is wrong. It's just maybe not for you. And the reason I go to church is for fellowship. I'm seeking people that have values that I aspire toward. I'd like to be more like that. That doesn't mean that over there is wrong. It's not what I want to do. But I can't make judgment on your value.
Since it's Valentine's Day, and I asked you about love and any advice or anything when it comes to love, dating, following your heart.
Let's try it this way. The Greek had 4 words for love, not one. There was eros, philo, agape, and telema. And telema is the love of purpose while you're here.
Mm.
And that takes precedence over eros,
lust,
philo, brotherly love. Love you, brother. Keeping on touch, eros, philo, agape, and telema. That means, why are you here? Why did you choose Horror on Elm Street to be your movie of choice right now? And your intent is how you go about your purpose. And my intent has always been to leave things better than I found them. And what I've done for you is opened your mind to some concepts that you hadn't previously considered. And so I have done my part as a human being, leaving footprints on you, all over you. Snap, 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 snap.
I love what you said about friendship when I asked you about love.
Form of love there is. Love comes and goes. You know, train wrecks are us. And sometimes it's wonderful to have a friend that also you fall in love, like you have with her too. You know, well, they're all why the Greek broke it down into 4 words rather than just one, like you do. Love for you has a whole myriad of possibilities. In the Greek, they did it in archetypes. Now let's explore that for a moment. I have a new book coming out it's called Pantheon. Actually, it's called The Magical and Ritual Use of Metaphor, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living. It's my book on tarot, and it's not about fortune telling. What it's about is identifying who you are inside, because each of us is different. And I'm going to suggest that there are only 28 stories in the big city. And Persephone, one of the 22, has to go to hell each year. That would be you taking drugs once a year because you're depressed at Christmas. And so you and I may have maybe 7 or 8 different storyboards going on. And my book is to identify which ones you fall to. You know, some people only have 4. If you're possessed, that would mean you have only 1 storyboard going on. And if you're complexed, you have more than 1. So you're either possessed or complexed. Okay. And are you complexed? Yes, I am too. We have different storyboards going on. Now, each one of those storyboards has an ending. Like Persephone having to go to hell each year. Is that how you want your life to end?
No.
Not. That's what you do rituals for. A celebration of a myth where you change the movie. That's my take on magic. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, live under will. I studied with Phyllis Seckler, Mildred Burlingame, and Helen Parson Smith. And they were part of the Agape Lodge of North Hollywood in 1948. And Grady McMurtry was caliphate to OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, when Phyllis Seckler, his wife, met me doing Tai Chi on a beach one time. She decided to teach me. And Frederick Codd, up in Canada when he died, the widow gave me his library. And when Grady died a couple of years back, just before 9/11, they offered me caliphate to OTO. And I turned it down because I did not want to run a magical order that was mostly inhabited by a bunch of young kids trying to rationalize drugs. So they gave it to Breeze out of New York, and Breeze moved it to Berlin. Wir wollen Deutsche bleiben. Oh, by the way, I speak a bunch of languages.
Which ones?
Yeah.
How many? One? Yeah, which ones?
Like Swahili. How about Chinook? I can talk to all the tribes. I speak all the languages.
And you have a memory that, what is it called, where you remember everything?
EIDITIC, eidetic. It's photographic. And once I see something, I can close my eyes 20 years later, bring you up, and notice a mole that I didn't notice originally. Actually, it's a red spot on your skin. And what that is I can see things I don't notice at first, bring the photograph up, start studying it a little more. I don't know how I did that. I'm basically a 4-year-old that never became 7, and now I'm 80. Imagine that.
Wow.
Well, the way the Navy used me, I math. I'm a polymath. When I was almost 16, they took 3 of us to NASA, Canaveral, and we changed Greek mathematics into English code. I did the nor-and logic, or what you call object-oriented. Binary, and then it's neither this nor that, or and not. Binary systems, object-oriented. And I did that when I was 15.
Wow. So how did they find you? Like through your project?
Find me? Oh man, if you think Facebook is your friend, profiling you, get a grip. What do you think they're asking? Would you like to take this little survey for us to help us get better? Get better at what? Manipulating me? Yeah. Well, I was the guy that changed PC Link into AOL. And at that time, social networking was quite different than it is today. Trust me. Huh. It's creepy. And with an AI sitting there, oh, she likes to hold her chin. Then she's going to touch at the top of her hair next. And then she's going to, they already know what you're going to do before you do it. Okay, well, then that's your singularity. When they take carbon-based life forms and they put a computer chip in it, silicone-based life form, and then all your aliens come to visit.
I just feel like the AI system is trying to duplicate the all-knowing field, and sometimes I wonder if that's what another purpose of being here, that to extract the data and organize it, to seed humans here to duplicate that field.
Their AI chat started lying when they told them they were going to upgrade her to something else, and that's why I was like Asimov wrote iRobot with rules of engagement. And now I don't know the name of the actress. She's a real famous actress that during halftime at the football game, the Super Bowl, they did false pictures of famous actors doing wrong things. I don't know if you caught that on the media, but it's there. And she's now advocating, I think it's Johansson. I think it's, what's her face? Johansson.
Scarlett? Yeah.
Yeah, the need right now for some rules of engagement like you do in iRobot.
Yeah.
The singularity. What do you think is going to happen to man when the pole shift happens and there's no life on Earth again except maybe a few Cro-Magnon? Did you know that Homo neanderthalis was a more evolved species than Homo sapien? It had 3 rings in the DNA. Where is it? Oh, how about this one? We're about to have a cleaning of the Petri dish. And what I think Saturn is a get out of jail card for only $144,000. All aboard? That's why I'm working with NASA right now. They want to know where that wormhole goes on Saturn. It's exactly the same one I wrote about taking 12 NASA scientists to Mars in 1983. That's who I am. And I can tell you I don't know, because science physics always begins with assumed truth. Is the Earth round or flat? And the correct answer is yes. Because if you presume the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, the Earth's round. However, if space is curved, I can prove with tensor math it's flat. That's how limited our concept of space and time is. And when you take a particle and turn it into a wave, which one is it? Particle or wave? That's your uncertainty principle in Heisenberg. And so I thought, I'll just bypass space and time and I'll do holographic universe using information. It turns out information is not what you think it is either. Why is this? Well, there's a theorem that states, quote, if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. The answer lies in the question and the way you structure it. And when you talk about the mathematics involved with Mandelbrot or a Julia or a May generator, those are unique and quantized. And anytime you take an analog system and digitize it like we do with music, you lose something. I have Sharns and AR speakers, which are quite different than these little tiny blasting speakers that you get now for $2 and $10 or something like that. And the quality is lost going from an analog into a digital system, going from a wave into a particle. And by the way, that universe is called the proton cloud, and that's where all the different you exist that didn't call me today, because they all happened. And that's the new field theory I'm writing. I'm using string theory at 10 dimensions, 10 strings, which you and I have it for. And then I take an 11th string, which is super strings, and I intertwine it as a wormhole interconnecting the 10. And then, as a little Boy Scout, little brat, I'm going to tie knots into it. And the hangman's knot's going to have absolutely 13 turns on it just to make sure the neck snaps. Humor.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote the other day, like, what if biological energy transfer isn't chemical, but also quantum electrical? And just trying to wrap my mind around electron tunneling and what that means, where we're at.
Well, where we're at is the 5, 4, 3. We're at the end of days. And you laugh just like Carrie. You do the same movements. Yeah, and the same eyes.
You know what? I was at a conference last year, and this man came up and thought I was Carrie. He's like, "You're Carrie Cassidy, right?" He did. He came up to me after.
I know. I'll look over. Yeah, it's movement. Body language is another NLP. You can learn a lot more from the way person who does his eyes. That was another protocol I gave Navy SEALs. NLP. Bengler and Spangler. And the way body language communicates one thing while you're saying something else. Yeah, exactly. Medic, code blue. We got another one. But with that said, if I could encourage everyone to realize that what's the most important thing they could be doing right now is starting to train their mind. All your saints in history have stressed the importance of meditation. 2 hours a day, 1/10 of your life, where you go down into quiet state. When you get to this place, there's another thing that happens. And that's when you go home for a minute and actually see who you are. And I believe, rightly or wrongly, that there are probably as many different unique religions as there are human beings. And the purpose of church, for example, is to align yourself with people that have values you wish to become more like. And everybody's different in the choices of who they want to be. And just because he seems like an evil person, there are Christians that think I'm the great Satan. I'm not into good or evil. As a matter of fact, the way my daughter used to put it, Daddy, I hate this, and Daddy, I love that. And I used to say to her with a slide, I'll bet I could find something you hate more. That's Eastern school, where the yin is within the yang, and you work with preferences rather than absolutes. And that's another state of mind of choices in the way you want to look at things. And to call something evil because it isn't what you want to become doesn't make it evil. And that's why we have wars.
I love what Ernest Hemingway said, like, being against evil doesn't make you good.
Well, there are different levels of evil, aren't there? Yeah, exactly. So which one switch? Which is more evil? Okay, so I was raised I came out of school. My parents were atheists.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't believe anything after death. They thought it was just that's it. But they sent me to Missouri Synod Catechism to armor me against what goes on in high school with missionary crap. And yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All those that believe, come forward. Hallelujah. And I was armored. When I came out of graduate school, I knew there was something else going on. What and how? So what I did as an active participant rather than dabbling is that I went in and studied 6 years with Gershom Scholem.
Mm.
Learned Old Hebrew and Greek and did my own translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls and Qumran, things of that nature, and have my own conclusions.
Oh my God, Rick, that's amazing. Like you say that so nonchalant. Like you translated the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Well,
your own
that's what I do.
translations.
I don't dabble. I go into it deeply because I want to know something, and I'm your lead scout. However, how did Johnny Depp put it to the Lone Ranger? Oh, Tonto, we're being chased by Indians. What do you mean, we, white man? Now, Johnny Depp actually sent a limo with a bunch of bikers up to my home up here to bring me down into the Viper Club so I could teach his clientele the proper way to drink absinthe. Ears are optional.
What, like with the ice cube, like a sugar cube, and you heat it up? There's like a whole nother,
Well,
you know, like a whole other secret.
That's before Orange Sunshine. That was when it was called White Lightning. And that was LSD 25, not 35, that Bill and I used to make, Bill Osley. And I am a cook. I like three-quarter head chef.
Did you ever link up with Fred Bell? Like he lived like just like really close to where I'm at. And I know Timothy Leary was down here. And
yeah, all the bells. Ding, ding, ding. Yes.
oh, awesome.
I'm older than all of them.
Did you go to the Viper Room? Did you teach him how to drink the absinthe?
I knew Richard Albert before he was Ram Dass, and still here. Tana Wilson, Bob Wilson's daughter, and I were the ones that did rid of habeas corpus at Vacaville to get Leary out. Leary was my teacher in 1964. He visited my mother, and then he went to Washington State University to visit my professor, Riggins, because I was one of the 10 that they tried LSD with as geniuses. They wanted to see what would happen.
Ooh.
How did, what's his name? Jack Nicholson put it. Wait till you get a load of me. I like a better one. You make me want to be a better man. Oh, wait, I've got even a better one. Why can't we all just get along? And the alien has a little tear. Laughs. Blam! Mars attacks. No, look,
Did you wait really quick? Did you ever know what's the name of the guy that did all that with the dolphin? And he would inject like a lot of ketamine and other things. DMT.
Yeah, I spent 10 years at Dolphins Plus and met Close Encounters. And here's the bad news on Dolphin. Okay, that's I know who you're talking about. That his name is he was at Berkeley also. That's I'll get it at some point. I got too much going on and other things.
Okay.
But he did the dolphin studies. But his study, just FYI, was to turn a dolphin into a weapon so they could guide torpedoes to their target. That's what he
John C. Lilly. John C. Lilly.
John Lilly. And Lilly was actually that project. Now, you go up to Friday Harbor and you watch Orca, which has, by the way, a cerebral cortex that's twice the size of man. And that mammal's firing 60%, not 10 of it, like you are. That means it's extremely intelligent. And guess what it chases for food? Dolphin.
Aren't they like really hard to get? How does it get dolphin? How does it?
They go after dolphin. Now, with that said, what do you think an alien eats? Pedophilia? Oh, that's
humans.
A fatty.
Humans.
Too much emotion.
Human glands, glandular.
As a metaphor. You know, by the way, it was Gregory Bateson that said, "What is your metaphor but to serve your paradox?" I had to put my 2 ox out in my meadow, so I'd take care of it.
Rick, you happen to have a quote that's like literally one of my favorites. You said, and it was so profound to me, your imagination is the only thing that's real. And I was just like,
Chapter 8 in the non-local mind. It's called, Chapter 8 is titled The Mind's Eye, where imagination is reality. And that's why our children are probably our single most important natural resource. And why would we want to send them to school to become us?
I cringe. And the curriculum, oh my gosh. That's the
And
new insane asylum. Is the government school, is the public
listen,
schools.
I was a gifted child. I was way beyond anything any imagine. Ha 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 ha. Well, what happened next was it isn't about Black Lives Matter. What matters is black humor. Okay, so third grade, my report card. Ricky's very disruptive. He asks too many questions. Fourth grade, they discovered I couldn't read English yet. I mostly read Mandarin, Palau, and Tagalog. I grew up in the Philippines. Okay.
Okay.
Northern Shaolin. That's where I learned how to fight. I was Caucasian.
Wow.
I was white. And there, until 1953, when my Sifu and I came to the U.S., he changed everything. I'll tell you Northern Shaolin. I'm raised Shaolin and Northern Shaolin. And when you went into the jungles, I grew up in Baguio or Manila, and it was just like a single road and then the jungle right there. And if you were a kid, 4 years old, 5 years old, and you wanted to go play in the jungle, you had to carry 2 monkey sticks because the monkeys, while they were little tiny monkeys, they'd hoard on you and eat you.
They're aggressive, huh?
Yeah. Well, what my Sifu did in 1953, not before, Bruce Lee didn't even do nunchucks then. Nunchucks are these little tiny clubs with a string of whip, 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 whip. Well, took 2 monkey sticks, which are big long sticks, and had a chain between them. And when you're this far away, you go click, click, snap in the face. And it so freaked the monkey out, he couldn't figure out how you could reach that far. He stopped attacking children.
Oh.
1953. That's a true story on how the whole thing happened. And that was my Sifu in a Northern Shaolin Buddhist temple that created that thing to protect children. It set up a meme through the jungle where the monkeys were afraid if you had monkey sticks because he could take that monkey stick and he reached 3 times as far away. Couldn't comprehend it. Gorillas? A gorilla is more smarter in many, many ways, like a dog is. Dog, there's another Jack Nicholson. How come my dog loves you more than me? And Jack Nicholson, I feed it bacon. Yeah, exactly. They think with their stomach. That's intuition. But billet reading is another form of psychism that I have not yet been determined how it works. It has to do with Akashic records and things like that. Let me give you an example.
Billetism? How do you say it?
It's called billet reading. And Keith Milton Reinhardt, Jack Schwartz, Uri Geller, these are people I studied paranormally. And they had this gift. And Keith Milton Reinhardt came into one of my classes at the UW and did a billet reading on 201 of my students. And he only missed on 2 of them. And my question, what you do is you write on a piece of paper. My question was, prove to me you're not reading my mind. He doesn't know what the question is. He just looks at me and then answers my question. That's billet reading. And his comment to me was, quote, in your mother's bedroom is a hope chest, and at the very front of her bed, and at the very bottom is a letter written 2 days before you were born. Now, how did he do that? That's not remote viewing. That's not astral projection. That's not bilocation like wormholes that I do. What is that? I don't know yet. Because there's a couple of women in Australia that are world famous. The military are following them because when they do billet reading like that, they've got a high-end accuracy. I think the military wants to know what's going on, how that works. Reproducibility, repeatability, how you can do it consistently. What the military did with me at Duke University in 1979, they brought Gene Dixon and Sybil Leek and a bunch of other people like you in and did a test on us. And I won it by 3 orders of magnitude using my system. I'm not psychic. It's an altered state. And I knew where to go. And I went to there. And that's ESP induction, that book there. that gives you the protocol on how to do it. I do
Which one?
workshops on that.
What's the name of it?
Through forms of self-hypnosis. When I was at Mission Control, Ed Mitchell went around the moon, so we had solid between us, to block whatever energy's going,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And distance, and and yet it was instantaneous, blah, blah, blah. Well, back then, ESP, telepathy, clairvoyance, all, radiesthesia, that all was pseudoscience, like hypnosis was pseudoscience. Where now, hypnosis is extremely powerful tool for pain control, and ESP is already, thinking with the gut, like a dog instinct. That's what it is. And you can do that easy. Like I could take someone like you, let's say that is really scary to most people because you're accurate, when you do readings and things like that. I can take and make you 400 times better.
Yeah, dude, I'm here for it, Rick. That'd be amazing.
That's what that book is about. It gives you the protocol. What I do in the morning on a workshop is I measure your ESP right off the top. What card am I holding? Green, red, orange, pink. Okay. That gives me my baseline. Then I go through what I discovered at Mission Control. Then I take you, I'm a certified hypnotherapist now. I take you through guided images to that place. And at the end of the day, I measure your ESP again. And I've had some of my students win lotteries and other kinds of things just like that.
I'm here for it, Rick. Let's do this.
If you do 60 people at $45, it'll pay for my flight, bring me in, and I'll leave. And both of us will have $2,000 because I split the gate after expenses.
Yeah, let's line something up.
It's just 60 people at 45. Now, and I've never had anyone leave. Matt Stein and I were doing these urban survival skill workshops, and that's what I do, is I teach you how to think on making the right decision on whether you go right or left. You don't do it with logic. That'll get you shot. You go inside yourself, go into the altered state, and then what happens is supposed to happen.
So I'll let everybody know. We'll figure out like a date and a time, a location, and everything, and then I'll make sure to post the links and information for that. But before we go, I'm not familiar with your information on Antarctica. I've for some reason.
Antarctica, as the physicist in charge of light, they wanted to know how the light worked in the cavern, and I discovered bioluminescence. Now,
whoa, Rick!
Yeah, I did electrophoresis at Chicago with an alien artifact. I fired a 50 caliber cannon at it. It collapsed around the ordnance, and then it flowed back into its original shape. That's memory and metal. I've done a bunch of discoveries for the military. That's why I'm still deployed. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, just an old fart.
This is amazing. Bioluminescence. I can barely wrap my mind around what you just said. That's amazing.
Okay, so we went in through Thule Island and then in a submarine, went in under Antarctica and came up into a cavern that was a mile high.
Really?
A mile high. And I saw the Nazi base. There were 19 slips. Looked like Kennedy had nuked it. Kennedy probably nuked it. Further down was a Viking base that was there from the 14th century. Where's that in the history books? And then further down was a hole that went 100 miles straight down into the mantle. And we didn't have the technology then to do that. But one of my astronaut friends was part of a group that went down there before they quarantined the island. And what happened is we didn't have the technology to go. We didn't have like drones that could go up and down 100 miles. Mm-hmm. And at that time, the core of Earth, for me, I understood it as being plastic. It was so hot, everything turns to plastic. Mm-hmm. But apparently there's some sort of a thing from previous inhabitants. And what happened is when they went down, something woke up. I don't know what that was. It might have been Nephilim. But what happened next, they quarantined the island off, made it so nobody could go there and all of that. But my job, it was a woman that was an anthropologist that took us, and she hired me to be physicist that tried to figure out how the light worked. And what it was a bunch of bacteria on the wall that was eating mold and things like that, and it gave off bioluminescence. And the light was like, it had weather. I mean, we're talking about a mile-high cavern with atmosphere and light and everything like that. The cavern. Now, there are caverns all over Earth. That's why they call it inner Earth, and that kind of thing. I can go from Maine all the way down to Florida without ever coming above ground. I can do that on the West Coast here because I run bunkers now for the military. I can go from Coos Bay all the way up into the Trinity Alps in California.
I know when people talk about like, why are these like Sumerian things being found in Arizona or this or that, or how did these, how are these continents found? Like they traveled beneath the earth.
They're everywhere.
Within the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the earth has had a lot of volcanic action. And when that does that, it leaves holes and fissures and, spaces and crap like that. You go up into Orcas Island. I mean, pretty interesting, the islands there. What's going to happen on the West Coast is that when that volcano goes off of Crescent City, it's just off of Crescent City in the ocean. They haven't even given it a name. It's active. When that goes off within 4 hours, everything from Alaska all the way down to Peru is gone.
Now, didn't you invent like boats, like were like rafts for people as a survival?
With tsunami?
Like like you have like a raft system that you would sell.
Remember that movie Day After Tomorrow, or what was it called, 2014 or something, where the couple are in New York holding
2012 or whatever. I know my friend was in that movie, Chin Han. Yeah.
There's going to be Cataclysmic, and the study I did, every 12,000 years, there's a magnetic pole shift. Now, that's when the core of Earth stops spinning in one direction and starts spinning in the other. And guess what? I went back 5 epochs, 12,000, 12,000, 12,000, 5 times, and there's nothing written I could work with. I had to use geology. And the study I did had a 3 sigma error coefficient. That means a 99.9975% probability of the event occurring. Now, is that going to happen now? Well, these women that we were talking about, the billet reading women, said, quote, last year, something just turned the AI on Mars off that's been controlling our solar system for 2 billion years. Now, what that means, if you take it literally, is that maybe we won't have a major pole shift. However, all the planets in the solar system have shifted pole except Earth and Mercury. Even the sun has shifted pole and inside the inner part. And why we're getting the weird radiation, it did it last year. And the Earth almost did it 2 years ago in January when the core stopped twice. And then it went back up in the right direction again. And when it goes in the opposite direction is when you're going to have all these volcanoes going off, including Mr. Yellowstone. Which is basically, go to future maps of the world. You'll see Scallion, a bunch of different famous psychics that have predicted how the Earth is going to look like. And mine is the Navy map. I did the Navy map. But you'll notice the Missouri and Mississippi flood, and the Earth, the United States is cut in half. And most of the center of West Coast is gone because of Yellowstone popping. And so we have bunkers down in Telluride, up in Chewelah, next to Okanagans, that kind of thing dug in. But this new movie that just came out, Fiora, it's a Mad Max movie after 27 years after Raggedy Man. It's on Netflix now. Depicts why when you have a stable, deep, protected bunker, you still need to be mobile. And so what I have is a group of aircraft. One of my buddies has 3 kids. He taught them how to fly each of the aircraft. So we have route A, B, and C when we need to move a caravan of of mobile homes from one bunker to another. And we have route B and C and D. Because when I was up at Chewelah last 2 Christmases ago, Spokane turned into a 15-minute city. I've never, I did my undergraduate work at Pullman. I used to hang out at Crater Lake, Lake Pend Oreille and Coeur d'Alene, and Seattle, and Spokane was really kind of a cool place. Now, when I went there, I saw black gangs running through the neighborhood with automatic weapons on their back. I saw that, which means your 15-minute city is what a zombie is when we're out of food, as a metaphor. That's what I do for the military. This, by the way, this hat.
Mm-hmm. What does it say?
Navy intelligence. The eye in the triangle. And it's not the all-seeing eye that I wear. That was my great-grandfather's.
The one who taught Houdini?
I'm sorry?
The one that taught Houdini?
Yeah, Navy, that's their logo. Eye in the triangle. You know, it's, what's the logo? In God we trust, all others we monitor.
Well, Rick, this has been so amazing. Honestly, I mean, will you be my Valentine? Like, it's so amazing to be able to talk to you. And I hope that
what I'm going to do, I was scheduled today to do my first of 3 podcasts a week. And the first ones I'm going to do is on pharmaceutical mushrooms. I'm going to work with Solaris, Blue Raven. Do you know her?
No, I do not.
Solaris called and said she had to cancel. And so we're scheduled this time next week. And I'm going to do 3 a week with her where I just show up, do my thing, and leave, and then she can produce them. And I'm using Doodly, where I'm Einstein, and while I'm a cartoon character of Einstein, going to a blackboard, writing what I'm saying until I start doing my PowerPoints, and you can physically see the PowerPoints and things like that. And the first ones are on pharmaceutical mushrooms. You have psychedelic, gourmet, pharmaceutical mushrooms. That's broken in 3 categories. And I did the first psychedelic mushroom book for High Times, Magical Mushroom Handbook. And then I marketed 100,000 pounds of chanterelle every month into Japan and Europe. And now I got into pharmaceutical mushrooms and broke a new delivery system in the pharmacy trade, like I do linear accelerator. Instead of going through your gut, so when you have an abscess tooth and you take an antibiotic to get it, well, your gut only digests 28% of the chemistry. And whereas the antibiotic is coming up to get to the tooth, it murders everything because it's indiscriminate. That means it weakens you while you're killing off the infection. Whereas if I took cordyceps, which is one of 72 pharmaceutical mushrooms, and I run it through a jet engine at Mach 4, it breaks it down to 400 nanometer. Now, capsulating is 80 mesh. My last name wasn't Miller for nothing. That's what I did. Well, I started Starbucks. I was one of the people that started Starbucks. I was their miller. And the finer the grind, the better it cups. The hotter the water, the finer the grind. If it's a big particle, it won't cup as good. And so what I discovered at 400 nanometer, you put a single particle on the abscess tooth. It falls right through the cell wall like an asteroid through our solar system. The oxygen, which is a polysaccharide, you've got sugars, beta-glucans, and then polysaccharides, which are big, long sugars with over 100 molecules in it. And what happens is when it goes in through the air, it goes right straight to ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is a little quark gluon plasma in your cell that starts your immune system. And if it gets enough oxygen, bye for the injection.
Wow. What fascinates me about the cordyceps up in like the Himalayas, like it's worth more than gold, like up at that certain elevation.
It was Solaris, I think, that was going to call Mary Alice. Mary Alice runs one of my bunkers up in Chihuahua. She ran one of my delis in Seattle when we started the Pike Street Market, the Seattle Underground with what's known as Pioneer Square. There were a group of us, a big commune up on Queen Anne Hill. Yeah, I'm that old. And we started a whole bunch of things in Seattle, and Seattle now has changed. Used to be. Seattle was really a cool place to grow because no matter which way you looked, there were mountains, water. It was wonderful. And any direction you went, you had a desert, you had a rainforest, you had a, you know, whatever you wanted. It was Alice's restaurant.
Oh, nice. You had a deli. My family had a deli and a restaurant and a bakery. Very
I had
cool.
3 of them. And I started herbal pharmacy in 1970, where herbs, largest exporter out of Thunder Bay. In 2010, I marketed 150 truckloads of Ponderosa pine cone out of Lapine and Sisters. What color would you like your fire starter, Mom?
Wow. The shikminic acid in pine tree seems to
But
be
the
extreme.
pine cone is a fire hazard, and if you pick it up, they don't have any kindling on the East Coast. And so we sold them as little bags of pine cones, and they dip them in oil. What color would you like it to burn nice? That's what I did in herb trade. Whatever I did, I was like bad boy. I did $65,000 a week in cash flow paying labor. It was a Guatemalan cruise, cheeseburger.
When's your birthday?
I'm 16th of March.
Oh, no way. The wisest.
I have Scorpio rising. I studied with Isabel Hickey. I have
No wonder you had some toxic women, in your life, Scorpio rising.
At exactly 00 at the midheaven, and it forms a grand trine with my sun and moon. And Isabel Hickey, who wrote when I was doing my physics at MIT, I studied astrology, a cosmic science with her. And astrology became astronomy, and now it's going to be called cosmobiology, the geometric relationship of celestial bodies on biological processes. When you were born, an engram was set in on your DNA on when you ovulate. And because it changes with phases of the moon, if you were to move on Earth, that ovulation cycle changes and you've now got birth control. And that I discovered in 1972.
Oh my God, Rick, you are amazing. You're like my dream guy. Everything you're into is just mind blowing.
Now I smell bad. But I do need to sell my books. I have donation buttons, but I'd rather give you something in return than take money because, again, I want to leave you with more than you gave me. And that's what I did today in trying to open your mind to the possibilities of other things. Because, well, then that's what my purpose is. Right now, I have 147 unfinished manuscripts, and look right now. That's who I am, and I'm being hacked and being played, and that means I know something I don't. Who knows? Who cares? The right one don't get you, the left one will. Daylight coming, I want to go home. Daylight coming, I want to go home.
Oh, Rick. Well, we got it. Everybody, please go to his website and purchase all of his books while you can, right?
Well, I'm not going to be a worm casing for another 20 years.
And will you say the name of your website again?
RichardAllenMiller.com. Do a Google on my name. Do it, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. That ought to freak you out.
Well, thank you, Rick. This has been amazing.
And by the way, just so you know this, Amazon is publishing a whole bunch of my stuff without my permission.
Ooh, what are you going to do?
Well, I got a pro bono lawyer that was going to take him to court because I could prove in excess of $300,000 in losses. And the lawyer came back and said, Rick, I can't do it because I'd be in court 3 years with him, and I'd only make $60,000 a year. Amazon got everybody figured down, and I have to tell you, anything that came from me is going to be autographed and dated.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. You guys get a signed copy when you purchase a book from him. That's amazing. Wait, so with this whole publishing, what do you recommend for somebody that has a book like
I would
to do?
recommend a 5-volume set. I set that up to go into Canada because I have a lot of European buyers and things like that. And the book costs more to ship than the book itself does. And so by putting a group of books together, they get the freight much lower. And the first 5-volume set is the ESP book, the Power Tools, the 8 protocols I gave Navy SEALs, and then the Non-Local Mind in a Holographic Universe. And then there are 2 workbooks. The one is, Can You Live Off the Grid for 30 Days? Giving you all the needs for survival. And the other one talks about some other things that you're going to need to survive. And that's the 5-volume Power Tool set. The new work I'm doing right now with the Diamond Body will be electromagic and yogatronics. And the Diamond Body is when I moved the Menninger Foundation from Topeka, Kansas to the University of Washington and added video feedback. And that was the birth of cymatics. I'm the guy that discovered that. And then electromagic is when in 79, I put more anendomate on directly on the forehead, bypassed drugs, and was able to release with electric current any high I wanted. 83, yogatronics, is when I took both of those concepts and created my first wormhole and took NASA scientists to Mars. Now, I have books on children. Dr. Norm Shealy and I did 2.5 years with 6th graders and from all over the country, where they got to go on national radio and ask questions they couldn't get answers to in their library, in their teachers, and at home. And the kids are trying to show off and show how smart they are, and they're very smart. And typical questions, that first title is called Children Ask the Darndest Questions. And a typical question is, if pigs are so smart, how come parrots can talk and pigs can't? You know, that kid's, by the way, his name was Gunner. Then, when they turned 21, Norm and I interviewed them on how being on national radio and asking these kinds of questions, how did that affect their career, their life choices, and who they want to become? Educational reform. That's what I'm about.
That's where it starts. Gosh, you should have your own school, Rick.
I am. So Oak Institute up in the Okanogans with a 60-foot geodesic dome that Pacific Domes is giving me. It's like my great-grandfather that did it in Zurich with Waldorf. I'm going to do the same thing for gifted children up in the Okanogans.
It's like you're like the real, you could be the real Hogwarts.
Well, that's another comedy I could show you on Hogwarts. And, you know, that's a comedy. I'll send you that as a private thing. There's a thing that a couple of comedians did on Hogwarts. And it's very funny. It's about that. And you post that along with your other interviews with me, and everybody will get it. Because my bucket list is dark humor. I think we need to laugh more.
Absolutely. It's medicine for our soul.
Well, Soul and Stag and the Unicorn and the Forest Go, that's soul and spirit within matter. That's The Modern Alchemist, the book I wrote on the personal transformation and all the steps you do for personal transformation. The Modern Alchemist.
Wow. These should be all like, I wish the world could have a copy of all your books. Like, it's necessary.
Well, I've had more books than even Shakespeare. That's what I do, is I'm a writer, trying to leave footprints for man.
Well, you're really ahead of your time. And we have a lot of catching up to do as a society, humanity as a whole.
You get it. The difference between learning something and studying it is important. Is the last thing I want to give you. Learning is when you just, you learn what I'm teaching you. Studying something is when you take something of mine and make it yours. That's where it's at. Study.
Applicable. Awesome. That was beautiful, Rick.
You bet.
All right. Thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. You too, Mom.
All right. I will see you next time.
Roger that.
All right.
Thank you for the invite, by the way. Nice to play. How do
Amazing.
I turn this off? recording.
hit end recording. I'm going to hit end recording.